Hello and welcome to Cut Twice. I recently got a music streamer for my main system. However, I wanted to get a similar system for the office. And while looking into streamers, I realised they can be very pricey. Many of them are like, £200-300. I mean, they can be more than that. You can easily get £400 ones. I eventually went with a Veeam Pro because it supported Amazon Music, and that was $150. But it got me to thinking, like, are there cheaper ways to do it? And so for me, as I use Amazon Music, I wanted a streamer that can stream from Amazon Music. So I thought to myself, well, I already use a Firecube in the bedroom to play music and stuff, but obviously it's coming through the soundbar and it's not particularly good quality. So I thought, what kind of like small system could I do for cheap? And so I came across one of these Amazon Fire Sticks. It's just been kind of floating around in the house. I found out that you can get these HDMI to HDMI and audio output devices. So you've got an input for your HDMI, which can easily be the Fire Stick itself. And then once you've got that, you've got an output which gives you your sound output. This one has a little headphone jack for just like RCA cables or something like that. And then this one has an optical out. So because it's got an optical out, I can feed it to any system and it will be isolated. It should allow me to use the Amazon Fire Stick as a music streamer. So put it together and test it out. So we have the Fire Stick here. This is an old one, so it's using, I think that's a mini USB. It's got the HDMI adapter just to make the cable a bit longer, a bit more flexible, and that helps when plugging into this, just give it a bit more space for the other cables. Now this is the key part. So this takes your HDMI signal in, and then via this little switch here, you can either pass the audio straight through. So then you've got HDMI in, HDMI out. And if you're on pass through, then the HDMI will have the audio signal, but then you can move that switch. You can set that to 2-channel there. And if you've got it set to 2-channel, then you'll get stereo out. And that's what I'm going to be using. So I just want to use it to build a little stereo setup. And then if you have a receiver which can deal with 5.1, you can set it to 5.1 out, and then I believe out of the SPDIF out you'll get, I think it's a Dolby 5.1, I'm not sure exactly which Dolby it is. There is an audio out, so if you don't want to do all the stuff with the DAC, you can use that, but you'll still need a volume control somewhere in the system, and also the likelihood that this is a high quality DAC is very, very low. This is a green, and these are great because the Raspberry Pi has made them way more common. So I think I got this for about, I think it's about £30. This Amazon Fire Stick, I think you can get this for about £30 now, and that's the newer model, so more powerful than this one. These cost about £15. There are more expensive ones and there are less expensive ones, but they kind of come out to around that. And there's lots and lots of them on Amazon. They're all kind of made by those kind of classic unknown random brands that produce loads and loads of this type of electronics. But this one seems to work quite happily. And then this is quite a key part of it. So I've got this Hopping E30, and that's a high quality DAC. Basically with this, you don't have to worry about audio quality. This is as good as you're going to get out pretty much any DAC. I mean, there are DACs which do better, but you are unable to hear it. It's outside the kind of range of human hearing. And the important part is that 1, this has an optical in, and 2, it has a preamp function. So it's got a remote control, and you can use that remote control to change the volume, and that's quite critical for this setup. The other bits are just a couple of speakers and an amp, but that's that's whatever setup works best for you. I think actually it would work quite well with active speakers, because then you'd have your volume controls and all that likely built into the speakers themselves. Here we have the Fire Stick itself, and that is connected into the HDMI to HDMI and then audio extractor. And the audio, the way I've got it set up, is coming out of this optical Toslink cable, and that's going into the topping DAC over here with its optical in there. And then we've also got it connected to a small screen, so that lets us see the interface and see what's going on. And then out of the DAC, I've just got an amp and a couple of speakers, just so that you can hear it working as well as see it working. So with the remote, you can turn on the Fire Stick, and then you've got all your kind of standard stuff. Obviously, the point of interest for this is the Amazon Music. You can give that a sec to load. And then with that Amazon Music, you can pretty much just go through and play whatever you like. So as you've got a screen, you can play music videos. And this is all if they're on the Amazon HD. Well, that's no good. Very sorry. And so you can play music videos because Amazon Music has those. And it's quite fun because Amazon Music has like the lyrics on, so you can play it and you got the lyrics on the screen. But in my opinion, the really interesting thing is that you can then use casting from your phone. So if you've got the Amazon Music app on your phone, and then you can cast it with that, and it should eventually play. And then once you're casting, you can, control the playlist from your phone. One thing to note, however, is you can't control the volume. It doesn't seem to have any effect, so you need to make sure you have a DAC like the Topping, which can be a preamp and do volume. So having put the system together and played with it, I'm actually really impressed. I think with the little one I've got the optical out. I think optical out is a good match for me because it means I don't have to worry about ground loops or anything like that. It gives me a simple output, but you can have coaxial as well. You can get devices like this with different outputs. So you could get one with a coaxial output. I don't think it's worth using their actual audio out, like analog out, because I don't think they have particularly good DACs, particularly at this price point. There's probably more expensive ones, but at that point it's like, well, why don't you just get a normal streamer? The Fire Sticks are cheap. I mean, you might very well have one lying around your house, as I did, or I think the cheapest one now is 30 quid, so you can just kind of grab one of those, put this together and make quite a good little system. I think probably the biggest issue was the lack of volume control. I think that means you have to get a very particular type of DAC, so I was lucky that I already had a DAC in the house with a volume control. I suppose you could move the volume down the system, so you could potentially get active speakers with their own volume control or an amp with a volume control, so there's definitely ways around it, but it'd be really nice if you could just use your Amazon Fire Stick remote and turn the volume up and down. But still, a small issue and one that there's a few different solutions to. I think the really interesting thing, which I didn't get into, is that a lot of people do side loading on their Fire Sticks and put all kinds of different apps. I saw people using Samba file shares to access music and video files. That's another thing, like once you've got this system set up, depending on how you set it up, you can use it to do everything else the Fire Stick normally does. So you can watch TV if you've got a big enough screen, or you can kind of use any of the kind of Fire apps. I think a really actually quite exciting thing is having a music streamer that can then play the music videos, because Amazon HD, for example, has loads of music videos on there as well. It also has lyrics and stuff like that, so if you want a kind of little extra visual element to your music experience, it can provide that really handily. It's quite impressive. Another possibility is, while I use this device to get the sound out, and the big advantage with this little thing is that you can get the sound out digitally, so you're not having to use this analog at all. You've just got a digital signal that's been stripped out of the HDMI, and then you can feed that to your DAC, and then boom, good sound quality and very simple. I think a way that this could be very interesting with one of these Fire Sticks is if you actually have a TV that already has an optical out. I haven't really looked at the state of small TVs at the moment, but I think it's quite possible you could get, a smallish monitor and one of these Fire Sticks, have the optical out of the TV, and then you'd have your optical out sort of for free, if you know what I mean. So yeah, I think that's another potential way to go. So all in all, I think very successful. I'm contemplating whether I will set this up in the office, or I'm quite interested in the Weem Mini, so I might get one of those and give that a try. But either way, yeah, fun little project, and if you've got one lying around the house and a spare DAC as well, I'd say just go for it. All right, thank you very much.